going to do a little more than a brief introduction, if that's okay. But do y'all do go-arounds on the call, or should we just jump into it?
We can do that.
Maybe a quick just roll through of at least your name and where you're calling from, and then I'll take it from there. But hi, I'm Dyanna. I'm calling from Richmond, Virginia. Pass it to you, Denise.
I'm Denise. I'm calling from Amherst, Massachusetts. And pass to Isabella.
Hi, I'm Isabella. I'm calling from Yarmouth, Maine.
And
I'll pass it to Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
There's two.
Hi, I'm Ben.
Ben G.
Ben G. Okay, never mind.
Oh no. Okay, I'll give it right back to you, Ben. I'm Ben. I'm also calling from Washington, D.C., and I will pass it to the other Ben.
I'm Ben, and I'm calling from La Paz, Bolivia. Pass to Will.
Hi, I'm Will. I'm calling from East Lansing, Michigan. I pass to Lena.
Hi. Sorry, my camera doesn't work, but I have a voice. Also a face, you cannot see it. I'm Lena. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And I will pass to, sorry, I was trying to see everybody. I will pass to Michaela. Did she already go?
No. This is Michaela. I am calling from Boulder, Colorado. You gone, Kyle?
Nope.
I'll pass it to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle. I'm calling from Berkeley, California. And how about you, Denise? Or you already went. Who hasn't gone?
Karina.
Hi,
Karina.
everyone. I'm Karina. I'm also calling in from Washington, D.C. And it looks like everyone else is calling in with a phone, so I can't see your names. So jump in.
Hi, I'm Espoir. Oh, go for it.
Oh, you go ahead. No, it's okay.
Okay, I'm Espoir, and I'm calling from St. Paul, Minnesota.
I'm Zach. I'm calling in from Philadelphia.
Awesome. I think that was everyone, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, everyone. It's always good to hear who's on the phone and get your names. And, yeah, wide range of people calling in here. And super glad to join you. But we're going to kick it off today with Will and I are going to share more about Sunrise. And I'll just give the flow of how we want to go through this. We're both going to share a little bit more about our stories and our journey to this point, so you can get to know us. And then we're going to give more information about what we're up to and what the work of this movement will be that we're calling Sunrise. And then end with some kind of details about how that work overlaps with SustainUS and opportunities to jump in. So we love questions. We'll kind of roll through this. If you have clarifying questions, feel free to hop in along the way. And then we want to just chat at the end as well. So that's what the flow of this will be. But I'll get us started and just share with y'all more about my journey, which is super overlapping and intertwining with SustainUS. I feel kind of funny right now, like being on this call, and a lot of people have no idea who I am because my life was 100% SustainUS for a lot of the time. Hi, Debbie. Welcome.
Hi.
Where are you calling from, Debbie?
I'm in Delaware. What's up, beautiful people?
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, so where should I start? I guess what I started organizing in the climate movement in my home state in Virginia. And Virginia is like it's a very interesting and vibrant place to be in the climate movement. My hometown that I grew up in is It's in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and has the fastest rising sea levels of anywhere along the East Coast. And then the other half of our state is an extraction state. So we have this kind of state that holds both the impacts and the causes of climate change very significantly. And so I started organizing more seriously in I'd say 2013, when I started working with young people across the state to build the Virginia Student Environmental Coalition, and was trying to dig into how we could build a youth climate movement that's actually pushing for action at the state level. And that became my like deep love and passion for the time that I was a student, and poured most of my weekend energy time and all of my late nights into building the youth climate movement in Virginia and building this organization, which is called VSEC. And then when I was graduating, I was like, I felt this just kind of forced detachment from student organizing. And so, and I had also just gotten back from COP20. I joined my first delegation with SustainUS at the end of my last year in school, and went to COP20 in Lima, Peru. And yeah, had a really powerful experience. So I was like, okay, I guess I should just dive into this world. And it seems like a step beyond student organizing. And so I decided to lead the COP21 delegation. And more or less, few details skipped, I moved to Paris in the later half of that year, and was just kind of roughing it, and decided that my only goal was to not pay rent and to figure out how to be the most useful to this movement and to this delegation that I was leading. And so kind of worked to get to know the French youth networks, and couch surfed in different places in France and in Paris. And made a lot of really good friends part of it as well. I remember actually falling out of bed one day when I realized that the next draft of the Paris Agreement had been written, and I was so excited, and then feeling this other kind of despair where I felt like I had actually nobody to talk to about that, because it was such a weird thing to get very excited about, of the deep policy wonk of the UN. And I started this campaign with our delegation and also other young people that connected internationally through the UN forum called Zero by 2050. And we were really fighting for what we were calling the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement, to be a full phase down of fossil fuels by 2050. And we were fighting to get that locked into the agreement, into text. And we did a lot of silly tactics, and we were going to the negotiations kind of before the COP as well, so they had all these pre-COP negotiations, and that were also in Bonn, Germany, and we found a way around the kind of rules of the UN. So we started painting our faces, because you can't wear any words on your shirt, or it's hard to bring signs in. And so this tactic of painting a zero around our right eye, this is my right eye, so we paint a zero around our right eye, and then we would follow people around and sit in negotiating rooms and do different kinds of actions to generate media attention, and build this little army of young people within the UN that were visibly showing up for zero fossil fuels at every turn. And yeah, we fought that campaign to the end, and just tracked every single draft of the agreement and the positions of all the countries. And we're trying to tell this story that mattered both in the halls of the UN, but also had a story that could resonate outside and inspire action in every other location that needs to join us to make Zero by 2050 possible. And by the end of my time in COP, I was just I feel so driven in this campaign and this work, but it was also this weird, Zero by 2050, no one talks about anything around that in Virginia. There's no conversation around 100% renewables or fossil fuel phase out, or anything that's even close to being that ambitious as the conversation compared to what was the conversations in my hometown. I just felt this kind of, I don't want to call it a guilt, but it was a false sense of reality that I created, where I could use the words that I wanted and campaign as hard as I could in this world of the UN, when I had felt to the sense that I'd left my community behind, and knowing very well that if Zero by 2050 was going to happen, it needed to happen in Virginia as well. So I kind of came back came back to the United States after that, after COP21 ended. And I was just really, I didn't know where I was going. I slept on a lot of friends' couches still after that, and just had a big stage of deep thought where I was thinking very deeply about what I felt like the responsibility of young people from the United States was, and how to balance that, like that tear that I felt of pushing for the most ambitious action at the UN, and then also how to show up and actually deliver the action that we need to make it happen at home, given that our country is the most responsible to global climate change, and feeling like I couldn't just show up in the international space like anyone else. I had to actually show up with the responsibility and movement building plans that I think need to happen in the United States. And to wrap that story up, it was that kind of like questioning that led me to eventually come to be working in Sunrise, and found a number of other people who are asking really big questions around what the youth climate movement in our country should and could accomplish, and the kind of frameworks and strategy that we needed to get there, so that we could really organize with a deep commitment to place and to each other, while having this sense of national unity that we need to be powerful and driven together. And I joined with Will and a team of other folks in the middle of last year to start building those plans and digging into these questions a lot more. And Sunrise is what has come out of that. So that's my journey to how I got here. And thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time to share that. But I'll hand it over to you, Will, to share some as well.
Great. Thanks, Di. I'll just share just a little bit about me, not quite as much, and then I'll get into some of what we're scheming up here for the year with Sunrise. My name is Will Lawrence. I grew up here in East Lansing, Michigan, surrounded by the Great Lakes, which hold 1/5 of the world's fresh water. And that was very important to me growing up, and it still is. And I first became politically conscious in high school when I just realized through reading the newspaper that all of the adults in my life were either lying to me or uninterested in telling the truth. And then I grew up a little bit and wrote that off as a period of teen angst. And then I grew up a little more and realized that I was exactly correct. So when I was in college, I was involved with the movement around divestment from fossil fuels. I got involved with that at my school, which is called Swarthmore College, which is outside of Philadelphia. And we met some people from Appalachia who are fighting mountaintop removal coal mining. And that set us on a whole journey of pressuring our college to divest from mountaintop removal and other fossil fuel extraction, which they have still declined to do. But in the process, I was able to help build the Divestment Student Network, which trained a lot of people and has supported a lot of winning divestment campaigns. And I'm really excited to get to be here on this call, because along the way I've had friends who have been involved with the climate negotiations at an international level. That was never so interesting to me, because I was more focused on the domestic side, and I couldn't quite see how they connected, and I never found it possible to really do organizing here in the United States around what was happening internationally. But I am now super excited about the negotiations happening this November, because there's a fellow named Rex Tillerson, maybe you've heard of him, who happens to be leading the U.S. Is leading the U.S. delegation in his formal capacity as the Secretary of State. So I think that poses us with a lot of interesting opportunities to be posing some sort of contrast between the Trump administration and the Trump-Tillerson administration and the young people of the United States. But I'll come back to that in just a minute. Before I come back to that, I want to just tell you a little bit about Sunrise and what it is that we're trying to do. Sunrise is being founded as we speak, we're about a month old, maybe a little bit less, but it's the product of about 9 months of thinking by Dyanna and myself and a number of other people who come out of the divestment movement and movements around Keystone XL and other pipelines and mining fights, as well as Dyanna and some other folks who have been connected to the international youth scene. So we're hoping to be able to draw in people who have been from all of those different worlds, and then also broadcast far and wide and connect with a lot of people who have never been part of any movement before. And what we're seeing is that this last election has really blown down the barriers between social movement, protest politics, and electoral politics. That's just what we're seeing, is that people who have said previously, oh, I'm just a political organizer, I would never go to a protest, are now showing up at resistance protests weekly. And people who said, oh, I'm just a movement organizer, I'm not really that interested in electoral politics, are talking about running for office or volunteering for campaigns. And there's something about the combination of seeing Bernie Sanders come this close to winning with a message that really, carried a lot of the values that we're out there fighting for, and then seeing Trump come to power on the other side of that, I think has sent a very clear message to a lot of people. So we're trying to channel that and really be part of the broader political revolution that's happening without sacrificing the movement edge. And also without sacrificing the notion that we really need to continue educating the public, mobilizing the public, and increasing the state of urgency that people feel around climate change. Because it's not enough just to elect people who say in their platform that they're going to do something about climate. We need an active, motivated, afraid, engaged public on the issue, because otherwise both of our political parties are going to sleep on it, and we're going to end up in a really bad place. So that's some of the thinking that's gone into our work, and the big thing we're organizing around is that by 1 year from now, May of 2018, we want to have at least 300 young people signed up to give 8 months of their lives from May through November to going all in as full-time volunteer organizers around the 2018 midterm. And that might mean they're taking a gap year after high school. That might mean they're taking a semester off of college. That might mean they're just quitting their crappy job, if they're not in school. And we're calling it Sunrise Semester. And we're going to focus these 300 volunteer organizers. We're going to pour our energy into 10 politically significant states where we can do the work of actually swinging, especially local elections, where we can, be electing candidates that really share our values in the fullest sense and are ready to oppose fossil fuel infrastructure and advocate for, things like 100% renewable energy. It'll mean continuing the kind of protest energy through bird dogging candidates, which means showing up at their events and asking them to take bolder stances on the issues. And it'll also mean potentially doing some, other ways of creatively exposing the role of the oil industry in our government. And our overall goal is, we really want to make climate change a decisive issue in the 2018 midterms. So that's where we need to be a year from now. We need to have 300 people signed up to do this. And we need to have maybe 50 or 60 houses donated so that they can live in movement houses, and we can, push our expenses way down. And we want to try to raise a student debt fund so that people who have loan payments can get their loans paid over the course of the year, so that we're not exclusive to that set of people, because most of us do have debt. And so to get all of that, we basically need to build a lot of hype over the next year. We need to get the word out, and then we need to get it out, and then we need to get it out, and then we need to get it out. And we need to establish ourselves as the moral leaders of the United States on this issue in this moment when it matters more than it ever has before. So that's where we get to the collaboration that we've been talking about with SustainUS, which is tremendously exciting. If the goal is to establish ourselves, is to demonstrate moral leadership in the face of the climate crisis, there's no better opportunity than to contrast ourselves with the immoral mal-leadership of the Trump administration and Rex Tillerson, our Secretary of State. And the climate talks happening in November are, we think, the perfect forum to actually do that. So again, what we've been discussing with Deneen and Karina and some others is a sequence of actions that will be leading up to the talks in November, happening during the talks in November and continuing after the talks in November. But imagine if, let's see, what do I want to say about this? So basically the goal is to pose the SustainUS delegation as the legitimate representatives of the United States, because it's like a wacky world in which Rex Tillerson could be considered the legitimate representative of 300 million people who are already being impacted by climate change and stand to be impacted a lot worse. So we think the SustainUS has a much stronger claim to be representing the interests of the people of this country and all future generations. And we want to do everything we can to set up that image in the public eye leading up to November. So we're still working out all the details of how this is going to work, but things that we've been floating include things like a silent strike. Some members of the Earth Guardians several years ago did this thing where one of the young kids from Earth Guardians just stopped talking for like 30 or 40 days leading up to one of these climate talks. And amazingly, apparently if you stop talking, everyone will start talking about you. And so it got quite a lot of press. And so there could be some frame around that, like no more talk without action. And have people who are participating in the delegation, some of them participating in that. We've floated the idea of doing hunger strikes. We floated the idea of collecting artifacts, physical objects that represent what we love and what we could lose here in the United States, and compiling them all into like a large collection of, 1,000 or 5,000 artifacts that then we can take a few of them with us to Germany and to again, further this story that we're actually out there talking to people. We're legitimately representing the people of this country as opposed to our supposed representatives. So these are some of the tactics that we're thinking about, but regardless of how we end up shuffling these all together, the basic idea is that we're going to start a drumbeat of action and confrontation beginning in like mid-September and continuing up until November when the talks start in Bonn. And every step of the way, we're going to be broadcasting a confrontation between us and the corrupt Trump fossil fuel regime. And then in Bonn, capping that off with a confrontation of some kinds to be determined. And then on the back end, putting all that energy into ongoing organizing here in the United States towards Sunrise semester and beyond, so that we're actually building real youth political power that can shift people on the issue and win elections. And at every step of the way, we're going to build in distributed action components. So it's like there will be some centralized thing happening, for instance, in Germany, but then there will be, maybe an action in Washington and maybe a couple of other big actions in cities around the country. But then there's also an action toolkit. So like anyone can take action at their college or their high school or in their community. So I'll stop there and kick it back over to Dyanna to add just a little bit, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you, Will. That was really fun. I knew all that, and I still got so excited. So yeah, really appreciate that overview. And just to bring some clarity to some more immediate next steps, we kind of the strategy and how to take action with us and how to join in with a community that is rooted locally and connected nationally is all packaged in a training program that we're building. And we'll be launching trainings throughout the summer and continuing throughout the fall, starting with one orientation training that'll be in just about a month away. And then we're launching kind of tiered in priority states. So we'll be starting in Colorado, Pennsylvania, Florida, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, right? And that's like kind of due to where we can make the strongest impact with Sunrise semester. It's led us to nail in those 5 states to launch in, and then following up, we'll have trainings in New York, Kentucky, Ohio, Louisiana, and Michigan as kind of the next tier, and then flexibility from where we can go from there. But those are the states that we're really going to focus in on, and there'll be roles for people outside of the states and inside of the states that folks can jump into. But that's the flow of trainings, and that's the training space is the best space to come into to become a leader in the movement. And we'll be keeping in touch and inviting SustainUS folks to join us in those trainings as we move forward. And I think that's most of what I wanted to say for next steps. I want to also invite, I guess, Karina and Dyanna, if there's things that you want to share more about collaboration between SustainUS and Sunrise.
Thanks, guys. That was great. I agree with you, Dyanna. I knew all of that and also was getting even more excited as you were explaining that, Will. I think you guys covered it.
That was awesome. You're both such wonderful storytellers. I just want to emphasize that I think part of the initial dream of bringing these two together was stemmed upon like the huge vibrancy of every single person participating in this challenge, and like the already deep sadness that I have as one of the people who will be selecting this small delegation of I want everyone to be a part of something with us, regardless if you're coming to Bonn or not. And coming to Bonn is not the only type of work that we do. And I want to be really intentional from the beginning that if you're participating in this challenge with us, I admire you and I want to continue working with you, whether that's in Germany or not. And this is one way that we want to do that. And that's why we're having this webinar. So I'm invigorated by thinking about ways that Sunrise can support what we're doing in Bonn while we're supporting Sunrise when we're in Bonn, and vice versa. And this dream of having a domestic delegation of supporting our work at COP23 and also just doing the real rooting domestic work that needs to happen at home. So I'm really excited about that, and I love viewing this creative challenge as not so much an application, but more so a community of people that will continue working together. Yeah.
Thanks, Dyanna. That was really beautiful, and also something I meant to say, but you said it way better, so thank you for that. I think I want to open it up for questions now. Will, was there anything else you wanted to add before I do that? Cool. Okay. Yeah. So that's most of what we wanted to share with y'all for right now, and would love to take any questions. So what's on top for y'all?
I had a quick question. So you talked a lot about things like trainings that'll happen over the summer and other things, but what are some things that we could do like kind of right now to help both the Sunrise movement and obviously the movement for climate justice?
Well, we just, it's funny you ask, we just had our team retreat this last weekend where we populated a list of roles that we need to fill to even get to these orientation trainings this summer. So there are some specialized skills that we're looking to fill. I want to boost especially people who are tech savvy. We should talk, but we could send out a list of, you should follow up with us over email, and we can talk about what it is that you like to do and think about a role that you can do to support in the next weeks. We're working on kind of like developing a wish list of, all the roles we want to fill and things we want people to give us, like cars and houses and things, that'll be on the website by midsummer, but it's not quite up yet. So you should just reach out to us directly. But we're really looking for people who can do all kinds of different stuff.
Cool. I'm going to send out a follow-up email about this webinar, and I'm just going to include both of your email addresses.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Thanks, Will. Also, especially if you live on the ground in any of those states, we'll be building some ground teams to support us in bringing those trainings to those places. So setting up space and logistics and recruitment is definitely going to be a huge need coming up soon.
Who is that on your phone, just so we can follow up later? I know that I don't have your name because you were on the phone.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Zach Rissman. I can reach out to you guys after. Thanks so much for that.
Thanks, Zach.
I have a question. How much of the Sunrise work is geared towards getting these young people to run who may be participating in the semester?
Not very much. I think we will probably end up, we want to cast a net and say, if anyone wants to run, and you are a viable candidate and are serious about it, like, we would be amped about that. I think our expectation is that maybe, there will be a few people who are like in our cohort who are actually running in 2018, but really we want to start to build the drumbeat on that, so then we can go much bigger and wider with that in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. This is Lena. I'm just wondering, this is kind of a boring logistical question, but also an equity question. If folks are expected to work as volunteers for 6 months and, for example, don't have savings or have burdensome student loans or anything else that would prevent you from volunteering for 6 months, how are you going to make that accessible for those people?
Yeah. Thanks, Lena. That's a great question, and is one that is like super on top when we're talking about volunteer programs. And I actually I volunteered for a year in between. I took a year off from school, and so a lot of my kind of dream for how this will look like came from my experience there. And want to echo first what Will laid out of like doing a student loan fundraiser and different creative ideas that we can support people. But definitely recognizing that it will be a spectrum, and we want to be able to like enter that honestly, where there are some people who are in a position where they can take greater risk and should be encouraged to do so, and should be encouraged to volunteer for to give all of their energy to the climate crisis if they're supported enough to do that. And then we as a movement need to be building support resources to support that opportunity for everyone to go all in. And so that'll just look like a spectrum from some people we might ask to say like, hey, you're in like a place where you have a lot of support. You could actually probably fundraise for yourself to participate in this program. And then there's other people we're going to say, please apply to our scholarship fund. Like we want you to participate, and we'll do everything we can to get the resources available. And our mindset is, pretty oriented towards saying that we know the kind of power we need is going to take way more deep participation than we could ever hire as staff as even a very large organization. And so let's orient our resources towards supporting people to participate by funding housing and funding food and funding the kind of support needs that we need to take care of each other, rather than limiting that towards a more like staff salary model that we've seen in other organizations. So I hope that gave some of an answer, but yeah, it's definitely a very live question and a huge priority for us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I have a quick question, and sorry if you can't hear me, it's a bit loud where I'm at. Do you have a sense for where you'll be recruiting from, mostly on college campuses, or do you have plans to contact different base building organizations, like Make the Road, New York, for example? Just curious.
I think it'll be both. I mean, I would really love to see a not only student movement, and I think that's very much our orientation, is that we want this to be a generational movement, and not only something that students can do on campus, which is something we felt limited in, I think, within the divestment movement and a lot of tactics in the youth climate movement that are specifically oriented only towards college campuses. So yeah, I want it to be students and non-students. And I think a lot of the recruitment will look like absorbing people who are activated through media and through seeing others take high risk action and join the movement. And then we'll also be working hard to make meaningful partnerships in local areas as well within states. So knowing that we're going to need to partner and work with folks who are already leading in those areas to make this powerful.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, just the nice thing that we're already experiencing in our 3 weeks so far of talking to people about this semester program is that it's simple enough and easy enough to understand that it's like very straightforward for a lot of different organizations just to like boost it to their list or like take it to their young people who they have in their base. And I think it's going to be very conducive to people promoting it in a variety of ways, in addition to the work that we're doing, which is basically, to build an organization that is going to naturally be recruiting and building the hype for it. That's all to say that, if you have opportunities, or groups that you think would be excited about this, especially youth-oriented groups, we're in the process of connecting, and it's all a possibility right now. So definitely drop us a line.
Hey guys, I had a question. Sorry if this was covered. I'm not sure because I was late to the start. But do you guys have like a social media sort of like outreach plan in place? Because I feel like social media is going to be pretty essential to getting the right demographic on board.
We have a social media team. I don't know if our plan is, basically we just want to like develop good content and do good shit and tell a powerful story, and we think people will hopefully share it. But I hear Facebook ads are the wave of the future for organizing. So I'm hoping to do some experimentation, buy like 50 cents worth of Facebook ads and see what happens.
Yeah, no, Facebook ads are mad cheap, and it's incredible how like specific you can target them. Like you can put them within like a 1 mile radius of like the NYU campus and set the age range from 18 to 24. And then boom, it's like, like you said, like not that bad. It's like $5 for 3 days of ads, and it could reach a lot of people. I just feel like this is about young people, and young people spend a lot of time on Facebook. Like I just know that when I go to like a lot of other climate groups and they're talking about like, standing on the street and asking people to sign petitions or calling their congressman and all that sort of stuff, like the barrier to entry is really high. Whereas if you just get them to sort of engage with something that they're already engaged with, that might just make it more accessible. This is how I feel. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really interested in the Bernie campaign model of distributed online organizing, which just really accepts that a lot of people just like literally live on the internet and are not going to come to anything like a meeting in person, but will do lots of work for the movement online. And we don't have experience doing that, but we're trying to figure out how to replicate that. So are you a social media wizard or anything like that?
No, but I can make videos and I can make memes. Okay, first I want to add that memes are like where climate change is missing out right now. Where are the climate change memes? If we can meme climate change, it will enter the popular culture in a way that it just needs to be. You know what I mean? Memes are simple, direct, you get the message, and Yeah, so that's one avenue I think that should be pursued. But really, like, I don't think it would be hard to find, if you could just grab like a small media team and engage with young people like directly. Like I'm based in New York, so like I just have this like vision where if you just talk to young people and you ask them simply like, hey, what gets you interested about climate change? Then you just say, well, by the way, we have this campaign, we have this page. All you got to do is click like on your phone right now, and then they're instantly connected to this thing. And it's a lot easier than getting them to like send us their email or ask them to do this other thing. Like if we could just get their foot in the door, then maybe it's more likely we'll grow the movement faster and more organically. I feel like, I don't know.
I think you're right. I'm building a media team right now. Do you want to email me?
Yes, I will.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you for answering my question.
I'm sure I'm not the only one in the group who's a bit migratory in terms of location, but are you guys looking for more on the ground support in those specific states, or looking only to plug into people who are already living and based there? And if so, what might that look like?
So you're asking about are you asking similar to the other similar question of like other ways to support that are not on the ground, or like how to support on the ground in like flash?
No, it's more like
I'm
living in New Hampshire but would be happy to move somewhere else to help. Is that something you guys would be interested in, or is that kind of off the table for this?
Yeah, totally. And we will definitely need on the ground support, and mostly are in those key areas. And we've kind of taken some lessons from like the Freedom Summer and the youth-led wing of the civil rights movement that really directed people and directed energy to saying, hey, like this is the place that we need to be in, and directed kind of national energy to flood and to support those areas. And that's a lot of the idea behind what we think Sunrise semester will look like. And so wanting to have it being held down by a number of folks who do live in the place, but also being able to flood in skilled organizers from very liberal areas that maybe could, send very skilled organizers to the places that really need it to push forward on climate change. So asking folks to move to join the work is definitely part of the puzzle. And in addition to like the kind of lesson that Will was talking about of there's a ton of work that people can do on their computers and trying to make the movement ready to be able to ask for that.
So just to clarify, then it's the orientation trainings this summer that are more geared towards people in those states, but later on it's open to anyone.
Yeah, mostly. Well, I saw you went off mute. Did you have?
You try.
The orientation training, the goal is to be able to start to build a community that can anchor the movement in that place. So at the orientation training, we'll have one orientation training that's kind of leaders of the movement more broadly, and will be held in Philadelphia that's not attached to place, because we'll have the second training in Pennsylvania that will be more geared towards the organizing community in Pennsylvania. And the goal is for those trainings, I think they will always have a few people who are not from that area, but the overall goal is to meet and be able to build that anchor that's going to lead this in Pennsylvania or wherever it's held.
Great.
You know, Devi reminded me of something. I'm from New Hampshire, and I have a car in New Hampshire, and it's been sitting there since I moved to New York, and I don't need it, so you guys can take it if you want to use it. But when is that going to happen? When do you need my car?
Well, we have friends up there who need it now, so.
Oh, okay. You can take it. Go get it. I don't want. But you need a new battery, but you can use it.
Okay, awesome. Say that in your email.
Okay, I will. Debbie, where do you live, by the way?
That's a complicated question. I'm in Delaware right now, but I'm making my way back north, and my family lives in Durham.
Oh, no way. Okay, yeah. Well, I went to UNH. I'm from Bedford. If you want to grab my car, I don't want to go back.
I'd be down. I mean, I can drive. anywhere.
Word.
So just like keep me posted or whatever.
Go easy on the suspension. I didn't pour a lot of money into it, but anyway, I just wanted to add that. You can have my car.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's the creative challenge, folks. Love it.
Any other questions that y'all have?
Anyone else have a car they don't want?
House, really, number one priority is going to be houses coming up soon, so keep your eyes peeled.
Are you two collaborating with Movement Moms? They that's their thing. They give houses to young people.
No.
I think maybe I just heard about this yesterday, but I didn't hear about it by name. Movement, do they have a website?
Yes. I just went on it now to see if it's real, and you'll have to email them. It looks like some of their pages aren't functioning, but I met someone a few months ago from there, and she's like, that's what we do. We give houses to young people so they can organize.
That's the dream.
I'd love to, before we close, just end with some more maybe emphasis from the both of you on what in your dreams it would look like for more emphasis on the international part of this and how that will play out, how you dream it will play out, and how specifically these amazing creative challenge participants, whether they will be in Bonn or not, can plug in. Maybe it's more of a leadership role, maybe, or how. Yeah, I just love to close with that emphasis on the international part of this, since that's what this is grounded in. If anyone else has.
I kind of want to hear that from you, Janine. But I could stumble some thoughts together, but that's kind of, the ultimate power of the partnership is that SustainUS brings strong expertise and skill within this international space, and we're going to team up to make that echo domestically and mobilize a force in the United States. So I'm wondering if there's anything on top that you want to share, or Karina.
Well, yeah, I could stab at it. I think I envision in some ways these all of the participants of the creative challenge have really, the ones actively engaging, have really shown themselves to be stepping up into what it means to be a storyteller and what it means to use that as an action tactic. And that is a skill that will be needed in these houses and in this movement. And perhaps, I don't know, perhaps they are some of the trainers, or have a specific role. Yeah, I'm still dreaming about the international side of it, and really want to. I like the no talking strike, because it really works with this the climate talks are all talk and not action, and therefore we're not going to talk leading up to it. And I think that's a powerful message if it's tied to a really clear demand, and that demand could be tearing apart Rex Tillerson at every chance we get, for example.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll add is, and so I've been working with SustainUS since 2014 is when I joined, which now feels like a while ago. And we've been mostly we shine in sending delegations to the UN and building deep community, and that's kind of our spotlight. But it's been a joy for me to see the way that the SustainUS community has been able to show up in different parts in the movement. And I remember like right after COP21, the next big mobilization was the Break Free mobilizations, which were a wave of coordinated actions against fossil fuel infrastructure. And there was like a Break Free event in New York and in Colorado and a number of other ones where the entire media team for all these events were just like SustainUS delegates that had learned to work together in these high pressure situations of the COP delegations. And I think that, and so the Creative Challenge is kind of a newer way for us. We actually just started it last year. We used to do really boring applications to these delegations and then decided that we wanted to bring a better gift to the movement by creating things and sharing skills and training each other in skills as an application process. So I hope to see that kind of role is something that Creative Challenge participants can bring towards the movement. And I don't think I'm answering the international part to your question, though I think that obviously can be applied everywhere. But I remember that feeling really impactful, seeing how we took shape around the break free mobilizations.
Thank you. I also do want to emphasize that I absolutely love this this way of framing, like the U.S. team is led by SustainUS, not by Rex Tillerson, but also want to really emphasize like the other frontline delegations, like from North America that will be at COP, and how we can connect those stories. Like, for example, the It Takes Roots delegation that was like really big in Paris, and how we can bridge those and really be incorporating intimate like intersectionality into the work that we're doing on the ground there.
Thanks for raising that, Deneen. I just wanted to throw in as well my excitement to lean a little bit deeper at some point into the conversation, both domestically and particularly internationally, entering that space. There's so many incredible organizers that work through different loops that are actually, some of which we may not even know of from our position coming from the US, that have really deep roots and really direct experience. And I'd love to, at some point hear more from everyone about sort of what the intent is in going in to make sure that as Sunrise builds, as SustainUS Sunrise builds together into the international sphere, those roots and those relationships are built really with a lot of respect and intention in terms of honoring leadership from folks that have been at this a lot longer, honoring elders in the movement as a part of the Youth Rising, and figuring out how that's not an afterthought, but it's actually like from the starting point, we're thinking about who do we want to have looped into different conversations, at what point, whose expertise is actually going to lift up this work, and at what points, I think a lot of the work we did last year at COP22 was like, how can we amplify stories and amplify actions in ways that are more powerful because we're actually respecting other people being upfront. And I have complete faith in everyone involved that that's something that everyone's already thinking about really deeply. But I'd love to open that up and think about how we can do that really strategically.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll just add, picking up off that, another thought came to my mind of something. I think I'm glad. I think I'm clicking now. Some of what you're bringing, Deneen, and yeah, I just think that's something that we actually talk about in Sunrise that we feel is a big gap in the movement. It's just like real, genuine conversation around the impacts of climate change and an ability to connect to that at like an emotional level within the United States. And And like, I think for me, that's probably big lesson number one after my first COP that I went to was I was like in Virginia and I'm like, is natural gas a bridge fuel? I don't know. Like everyone's so complicated about all these solutions. And I went to COP and made genuine relationships with like people from all around the world and just got to understand climate change at a personal level on a whole nother light and understand what people were fighting for. And I came back and I was like, no fossil fuel infrastructure, we're not doing it. And just like got so much more bolder in my demands, and it felt personal and it felt real. And I felt like I had stories to give me that power that made me feel connected and not crazy. And I think that's the kind of storytelling that we have the ability to bring through holding genuine relationships with, the front lines of climate change all around the world, as well as in our own country. And I hope we can bring that to this movement more strongly. Okay, well, I see it's at the end of the hour and the sun has set in Michigan, it looks like. See you in the dark over there, Will. I don't know if there's a way we like to end these webinars, but I'll just say thank you. And this is what I'm dedicating my life to. So if you ever want to chat more, just hit me up and I will be very glad to talk with you more. And it was just, I'm super grateful for all of you and the work that you're doing and for this hour of your time to get to chat more about where we can go from here. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Email us.
Thank you so much, Dyanna. This is really awesome. And just want to give a plug to everyone that if you're still wondering what you should write about for round 2, Sunrise is a great thing to write about and get the name out there in every way that you can, because that's how this semester program will happen. And you just ask people for their houses too, in their cars.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining. I will be sending a follow-up email with a link to this video, as well as Dyanna and Will's email, so you can contact them. And ask people if they have houses that they don't want anymore and let us know.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.